Hello, hello, and welcome to Shared Spaces. My name is Laquita Chansey, and I'm the founder and director of Small to More Homes. Chap will be tuning in with us in just a second, and I have Miss Yolanda Pulley here with us today. I'm sure somebody has heard this woman's name before because her name rings bells in the streets of Baltimore. So, Miss Pulley, tell us what you got going on and what you've been up to lately.
Oh, well, we out here still trying to save our city through information, through our nonprofit organization. We're a one-stop shop. We are people empowered by the struggle. We're a one-stop shop for all struggles. Our motto is, in order to understand the people, you have to be one of them. And we don't have business hours, we have life hours. So we don't take off for your birthday, my birthday, nor Jesus' birthday. We we do this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I was one of your mayoral candidates, but I dropped my campaign during COVID because we didn't know what that thing was, and I wasn't trying to put my team at risk. Everybody else was willing to take their chances on the win. I was like, oh, no, sir. No, sir. So, basically, we out here just doing what we do, saving the people that want to be saved, and, just being us.
That's half the battle because we do have to find the people that want to be saved because not everybody who needs help wants help or knows how to reach out and get it. So Miss Donna and Jason, let's go ahead and introduce you all first. Miss Donna, what is it that you all do with the organization?
Yes, ma'am. So I am the CFO named. I'm also the life coach. I'm a certified life coach as well. So I am I'm like really put my energy on the energy that I want to have because I believe in accountability. I believe that, if you want to see change, I believe that you must be the change that you want to see. And if you want people accountable, I believe that we have to be accountable in their face to show them that it's not bad. Like, we're bigger than our biggest mistake. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that. And so, Mr. Jason, do you have any one-liners like Miss Donna does as well? Can you tell us a little bit about
I,
what you do?
I'm actually caught off guard because I got my fingers full of honey barbecue wings, and so I didn't know that we were coming on. I knew Yolanda was coming on, but I didn't know I was coming on. But good evening, everyone, and I do apologize for the, but but
She got me too. I'm so sorry. She got me too, Jason. Because Yolanda, like, I literally, soon as we went off, I ran downstairs to put dinner on, and she's like, "Click on the link," and then I'm on here. I'm like, "It's a lady here."
Be ye prepared.
I got
Right?
turkey wings just sitting on the side of the sink, but it's okay. I'm glad to be here. I hope the phone. I hope it doesn't die on you guys. I hope because it's about to die. So I'm praying that it don't die on you guys.
so so
That's
so
okay.
so here with my sticky fingers, I'm the deputy executive director for People Empowered by the Struggle, and I look at myself as like the clutch hitter. Whenever something needs to be done by any of these marvelous ladies that you see before you, I come in and try to support and help because I really believe in the mission of our founder, Yolanda Pulley, but I also believe in the partnership that she has with her sister in reference to this organization is concerned because this is a partnership. Yolanda empowers us to have a stake in this nonprofit. But the relationship between her and her sister, I try to support anything that they need in reference to our nonprofit.
Okay, so tell me, how long has the nonprofit been founded? And we're kind of in the same lane. What is it? What is it that you all? Who is it that you all are focusing on? Is really what I should say.
We focus on
Everybody.
people. Yeah, we focus on people. We don't care,
Mhm.
what background you are. We don't care what color you are. We don't even care if you speak English or not. As long as you got to translate, we're gonna help you. A translate button because we don't speak Spanish and nothing else, but we can,
We try.
technology helps us. Right,
Right,
technology.
right. Google, right.
Right,
Google speaks,
right.
right.
So that
We
helps us help a
point
lot of people.
fingers.
Right. So me and you basically do the same thing. We fight for the same mission. So my thing is that we need to bring it together for one mission to help people. We're not focused on, well, if they get it, we ain't gonna get it. No, 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 no. It's about saving lives in our city. Because if we don't save us, nobody's coming to save us. No one. The only our help is right here staring in your face every day. Every
These
day.
4 boxes right here, and who you see when you walk out your house. Yes, ma'am.
Right.
We are a new nonprofit, so we were just incorporated last year, and actually
just 2020. We're 2022.
Right, so 20 right. We actually would have been incorporated earlier if it wasn't for the fact of the pandemic, right? COVID in the offices. But Yolanda's been doing the work though for 20 years. And at first, Yolanda really she kind of ignored the whole nonprofit thing. She didn't even consider what she was doing to even be considered to be done at a nonprofit level, because she's just always done the work and hasn't asked for anything or has never developed anything around it. So when me and Yolanda first got together, I really kind of encouraged her that you should really move forward. Like, you have something here. Because what we found with every other nonprofit is that a lot of times there are nonprofits that do something that is their strength in their lane. But for us, what we kind of really consider ourselves to be more of that bridge, that navigator sometimes, to help folks to find these resources, to partner up with organizations like yourself and what you're trying to do, and connect those resources to those who may not know nothing about your organization. You know, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, in many cases, it's a matter of helping people, to navigate through these struggles in their lives. And so I told Yolanda, I said, well, you've been doing this for 20 years. People call Yolanda and say, hey, I have a job issue. And, call this person and get a job. Hey, I have a housing issue. Call this person and, and I'll get your housing situation straightened out. So she's been doing that for 20 years nonstop. It was time for her to do it in a nonprofit level.
I didn't want it because, nonprofits is like the new lynching to me. They take one nonprofit, they put it against another nonprofit, and then they make you like the slaves in the barnyard. They want you to fight over the scraps of the chitlins, and I wasn't willing to do it.
Listen, Yolanda, I say it to Chap all the time, who has finally joined on with us. So, Chap, you'll get to introduce yourself in a second. But I always say, like, even in the nonprofit world, it is still very systemically racist. Like, it is still someone telling us, we approve this mission, we support this mission, we believe in you, this is what we want you to support, and this is where we will put our money. And it's like, no, we live in these communities to see exactly what we're lacking every day. I don't need your study, I don't need your research. And like you say, Yolanda, for so long you were doing it even without their money, but we deserve to get those breaks. We deserve to take those monies, those dollars, because they've been stripped from our resources. Like, they should have been here in the first place. And if you know anything about the Black butterfly, it's our communities that are suffering. So I support this entire.
But one thing I won't do, I will not be silent for no one. You cannot buy Yolanda. I'm the only candidate that turned down all the money. I'm not for sale. I'm like Miss Cheatham said, I'm unbought, unbothered, and unbossed. I will not do it. Yeah, I will not.
And unpaid.
Right. Yeah. Right. But that becomes a problem for an organization like ours, because again, for the most part, people expect to be your handlers. If I give you this money from this larger organization,
I need you to
that also may have the blessing of, the administration and beyond, you need to kind of conform and comply to what I want. So, but if you see something that's out of line, like for instance, one of our main missions has been to really address the educational system and hold them accountable. Well, if we start attacking that, well, we now become arch nemesis of everyone from Santa Lisa's to everyone that sits on that school board, which they do have influences. That there's fraternities, sororities, there's doctors, there's folks of influence that are within that space. So for a nonprofit, it could be very volatile space for you to operate in, especially when you're asking for the master's money.
We're also the organization that's calling for her resignation and we want a fully elected board. So, you know, we got one part of the lawsuit out there with the taxpayers, but we want reparations for the people who you made suffer, who cannot get a job, who cannot live thriving on their own because of how you did our educational system. So we're actually going to implement another piece to that lawsuit.
And maybe that's something that we could throw out there, because we've been asking that. So again, Giovanni Patterson has the lawsuit. That's to represent the taxpayer side, because the taxpayers have really been violated here in reference to the way the money is being appropriated and spent.
You ask me.
Correct, in the school system. But there's also still accountability that the parents should be able to get and the students should be able to get, and some sort of reparations or some sort of remedy should be, in some cases, enforced. But in order to do that, we need lawyers that are going to be willing, in many cases, to take the caseload pro bono. Understand, though, that doing it pro bono, though, you're not doing it for some special interest group. You're doing it for the children. So we really need, in some cases, the Black lawyers that always step up for many different issues within the community. We need somebody to step up and help us in this, because there is crimes that are being committed on the behalf of our children, in the name of our children. And it's affecting our community in the long run when we're dealing with the school to prison pipeline that is open wide in many cases in our community in Baltimore City.
Oh, we got to let Chad talk. We taking over this.
We're sorry, Chad.
He's just sitting over there in the corner, all silent.
I'm taking notes because this is a great conversation, and there's so many things to say that I think everyone needs to be heard, man. Like I just wrote down a note when you said that the prison pipeline, even at some of our 21st century schools, you go in the door locks behind you. Then they have to, but you got to stand in front of a camera, get permission to come in. You go through a metal detector. They search your bag, then you're inside, lock the door behind you, and then they have to unlock the door in front of you.
That's because they want to get you used to. They don't want to shock you.
People don't think about that, and the kids don't think about that. But we're doing that. And then when you get inside, you make them just like when you locked up. You got to follow head down, follow the line. They want you to get on the side of the wall and follow the line. And everything they're doing is the same things they do in institutions, right?
Conditioning.
Yep.
Conditioning. Pure mental conditioning. These are things that Hitler wrote about. You know what I mean? This is mental conditioning of people.
I wanted to stay on the school subject because we were talking earlier this week about the schools closing. But one thing, as I marinated on the whole process, and the further I dig, the more circles I run, and all the things happening that's just raping our children from their education. And there's a lady who does the singing sensations, Dr. I can't remember her name, but she's very intentional about something we've removed from the schools. And she was a music teacher in Baltimore City till we removed like arts and humanities, right? And she had to move out to the county, but she has this program where she takes young people from the city, puts them in a choir, and then travels across the world, not the nation, takes kids from Baltimore going, raising money to go to Argentina, to go to Europe, go to really exotic places.
I want to sing.
Hey, you can do the tryouts, but one thing my thought was this week while we're talking about schools was that when they remove art from the schools, our children aren't being taught to express themselves. And essentially, when you remove art and music and inspirational things from school and everything STEM, you're silencing our prophets.
Yeah. I always say to folks, every time I hear the word STEM, when people say STEM, I immediately correct them. I say, no, you mean stream. And they say, what do you mean stream? I say stream. You have to have science, technology, reading, art, entertainment, mathematics, engineering. All that needs to be mixed in there. You can't have it where it's just science, technology, engineering, and math. You have to open up that creative mind, that creative process, which happens through creativity, through arts
and reading. Like, I'm glad you brought that up because you guys had mentioned your show earlier about Patterson. They did a survey of Patterson for the city and found that 77% of their school population read at like a 4th grade level, but they in 9 to 12, right? So yeah, reading is abandoned, man. I have a nephew in Florida. When he was like a 15-year-old, in like the 5th grade or 6th. Like they moved him up. What happened was he was old enough to drive in the 5th grade or 6th grade, right? He could drive his schoolmates to school because he got held back so much, and nobody wanted to deal with him. So nobody wanted to deal with him. He couldn't read. So what they did
super
was
senior.
right. So what they did was they took him and put him in his correct grade, which was like 10th or 11th but he didn't even get 5th grade yet, hoping that he would drop out.
Wow.
And he is it's a black kid, man. It's not, he don't look like me. And that's
you have to understand. You have to understand. It doesn't matter what city you go to. It's certain things to set up this designed to make you fail. An educational system is definitely one of them, because they need that prison to pipeline, because of they need the recidivism. They need all of that in order to make that private industrial thrive, which is the jail system. They are private owned. They are private entity that doctors and lawyers and judges sit on. So why wouldn't they want mass incarceration? I mean, and how do they do it? They do it through the piss poor educational system, and they do it on purpose. And until we change it, it doesn't matter the color of your skin. It's all what you're in. And when we in it, we don't see it. But when we get out of it, because I'm a product of Baltimore City Schools, and I really didn't get it until I got out, and it started affecting my children. And now it's affecting my grandchildren. And somewhere along the line, the buck have to stop being passed.
Well, and to your point, it is intentional. People are getting paid to maintain our school system in this situation. They're getting paid more than the mayor.
This is how intertwined it is, right? It's so intertwined that when you look at everything from the judges to the correctional officers, when you look at their pensions, right? Their pensions, most of the money funds that they're putting out are trading on the stock market, that's also trading for Prison and Corporation of America and some of these other institutions that are some of these privately owned corporations. So everybody's there's benefactors everywhere. Everybody's benefiting from off of crime. And if you were to put a stop to crime, everything within the chain, including those pensions, including those police officers, the sheriffs, everybody the bailiffs would all be affected in the process. So how do you stop a machine that's literally $1 trillion industry, and that's really affects our community, or that's being built off of our community?
Well, just like you said, Jason, and I said it on every mayoral platform that I was on, crime will never cease. It's the money is in what they call prevention, not the solution. You will never end crime, because crime is the biggest business in the United States, just like the United States sits on the United States. On the New York Stock Exchange as a business.
So when we have I've been on a couple gun violence meetings this week, and they're talking about how some of the American Rescue Plan Act money is going towards that, right? So where then, if you're saying that the money and the system supports prevention, not solutions, where's the money going right now?
It goes to the big businesses. Some of it
goes. Well, I'm gonna tell you, some of it goes to Safe Streets, even though, even though their people got caught.
Right. But I always say that the problem is so big. It's like dropping a drop of water into Lake Michigan. It has no real effect, unfortunately. And this is not to diminish the work that so many folks are doing. As a matter of fact, if you're doing something, I salute you, because you're at least not a part of the problem. You're trying to solve the problem. So I appreciate you. But at the end of the day, the problem is so great. And then I keep saying generation after generation keeps coming in afterwards. So if you never stop the bleeding and you have new, blood coming out constantly, how do you resolve that issue? How do you put a dent?
That's part of it. Like, we're seeing it as an issue and blood coming out, while they're seeing it as the system is working exactly as we wanted it to.
Correct.
We're making all of this money. Our jails are full. Our kids, our kids are learning. We can send them to private schools. it doesn't matter how the money is being spent throughout the city. We don't care what the city's doing with that. As long as you continue to control these populations that we can benefit from, keep doing what you've been doing, because that's what we need y'all to do. So we need the students to fail. We need the students to not be able to read. We need the homes to fall apart so that they can come in and gentrify the areas. Like, it's all a part of the whole system. And it's, in addition to being systemic, it's institutional. So right there, it's in the jails, it's in the schools, it's in corporate America. Like, we got to break it all down and just start all over. Like, where is Wakanda, y'all?
Well, you have to understand that even though we speak of safe streets, who sits over top of safe streets?
No, I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah, but no, I'm saying who sits over top of safe streets? You have Life Bridge and you have John Hopkins, two of the biggest entities that collect the money for them to hand it out. They're the ones that's getting actually, so that money that
managed under the health department.
Right. So, like I said, these are all, when you sit up there and say something about safe streets, look who sits over top of safe streets, who's getting the money. Don't look at safe streets. And these are the people that's been put in place, because if you stop it, okay, so let's take a victim that's on Baltimore City streets that had piss poor education, and now they have turned to the streets, and now they were murdered in Baltimore City streets. Everybody get paid except for that victim family. Everybody gets the money. The doctors, the lawyers, the number one money maker in Baltimore City right now is the freaking what you call them, a mortuary. That is sad. And now you got people that want to open up mortuaries and put them into our communities. They sitting right there letting you know you're gonna die. Like where Wiley sit at,
it's like an old Western movie when you got the guy building the coffins right there in the small little town across the street before right where a shootout's gonna happen.
Right. I do not agree with Wiley sitting in the middle of a black neighborhood and across the street from a school. So like let's take Baltimore City Jail. What is that other one? Right there, DOC. It says right in front of people, housing projects. You're getting them used. Children be what they see, and they're not afraid. My daddy in there. What? I heard a child say that my daddy is in there.
And I knew somebody that had their uncles, cousins, brother, father, and I believe their grandfather were all in one institution up in Hagerstown.
Right. Like you're breeding children, just like you said, when them doors clank clank behind you, you're getting them used to that noise when they enter the school, to that and they already, and we already know 9 times out of 10 what that looks like and where it's going to if we do not start saving these children's lives in elementary school. Then they also have a thing where they tell you in the 3rd grade whether your child is going to be in jail or be a productive part of society.
Who does? Yeah. Who? How?
So who knows? Looking at the test scores, right? Looking at the test scores, they can determine whether or not those students at the elementary level could possibly be the future.
But that's data that the school needs to take back to the board to say we're creating these criminals. Like,
no,
if that's the case, then y'all are creating the criminals.
Right. But can't look, Yolanda.
Right.
I'm sorry,
they do it to collect the money. I mean, the data to get the money. The billions. It's no way on God's green earth we have a $1.18 billion budget in Baltimore City education. You're telling me that we can't have you're telling me we can't have 21st century schools. You're telling me we can't have clean water. You're telling me I can't wash my hands. You're telling me I don't even have good toilet paper to wipe my behind with. And you're asking parents to actually send it in with their students when schools start. Hand sanitizer, wipes, and all this kind of stuff. Why is that not coming out the school budget? Right. And they don't even get to bring a textbook home.
Yep.
When you had millions of dollars of PPE money floating around from the federal government, which doesn't make any sense. But look, when we talk about the price of crime, right? It's true, the statement when you say crime does not pay, because just looking at it annually, right? I look at this every year. All right. Last year, $105 billion annually they project in reference to crime, whether it's, the victims, the impact on families, things of that nature. that tolls out to $425 for every man, woman, and child in the United States is responsible for. So crime does not pay. Actually, crime takes away. And for a family household that is impoverished, that is a victim of crime, whether or even a perpetuator of crime, that family pays dearly in the long run because they don't have $425 to throw away.
Right.
And the impact may even be more, especially because we've seen households where you have people that are maimed, literally, are paralyzed, quadriplegic, paraplegic, dealing with all kinds of medical continuing issues. And in some cases, dying years later. That's another story they don't tell you about many of these victims dying later because of their medical, conditions, and never recovering 100%. So the cost of crime does not pay. And we really need to look at addressing it at the holistic level, at a grassroots level, at a community level, because at the end of the day, it's also about continuing to hold on to that wealth in our community. Crime is taking the wealth away from the Black communities. I mean,
I feel like the wealth was never there and that the crime exists because the wealth was never there. Like if we had jobs that paid us, the right dollar amount, like nobody, I don't see people robbing folks for fun. They robbing folks because they need to eat dinner. You know what I'm saying? So if we had the jobs that paid like a DC or even fair, let's just say fair wages, because Baltimore wages are low. If Baltimore had better wages, fewer people would need to go out and feel like they need to rob, steal, even if they're taking it out of a parked car, you're taking it from someone. You know what I mean? Like people keep losing their material things. But if the jobs existed and the opportunities existed, like we're a resilient people. We don't have to beg, borrow, and steal. Like give us opportunities and stuff will get done. Like teach the kids to read and the little guys will read and do things that need to be done so that they can be contributing members of society. Like nobody is out here like, you know what, when I grow up, I want to be a criminal that goes to jail.
But they don't say they want to be police. They don't say they want to be police no more either.
And I'm okay with that. But I hear what you're saying, Yolanda. You're right. They also don't say I want to be a policeman. But if we can get them out of the mindset of these school to prison pipelines just being normal and gun and metal detectors and all of that, like that should not be the norm. We should all be up in arms about it.
Yeah, but this is what desperation looks like.
I know,
and I was the only mayoral candidate. Right. And I was the only mayoral candidate that said that I was going to do a 2-year pilot program where you paid no taxes. Because people need to keep their money. And I'm showing the city that I believe in you. I believe that we can thrive. If I let you keep your tax money for 2 years, you pay no city taxes for 2 years. And we give you not minimum wage, but living wages in our city. We could actually see what that looks like. And we're not teaching people to, rob Peter to pay Paul because, girl, I had to do this and I had to do that and I couldn't pay this one. And the crazy part about it, a couple of years ago, I was standing in line as a mayoral candidate because when I came home, my lights was off. And I had to go downtown. And stand in this long BG&E line to pay my bill. It was an old lady standing in front of me. And, she's basically talking to herself. And she was like, oh, well, I guess I can't get my medication and eat this for the rest of this month. And hopefully I'll be able to do it next month because I'm backed up and this, that, and the third. I gave her my bill money. I gave her my BG&E money and my lights were still off.
Right.
But guess what? I asked friends and family. We came together and got it again because I gave her what I had. That's what we supposed to be doing. We should not be doing pay
community
raises and paying people $200,000 and $300,000 and what? And we cannot help people. That's absurd to me. And why are we paying organizations to pay organizations? That doesn't make sense to me.
That's so the one grant I did try out for, that was one of the requirements is that you had to have an established 501c with financials to manage the grant they wanted to give you.
Yeah, but see, that's what they do to
Right.
keep the little
Right.
people out yet again.
Right.
Right.
I see
So
that now.
I'm
That
gonna-
now hearing your side of the conversation about how Hopkins is over top of certain things. They're over top of a lot of things, bro.
They want you
Right.
to have a
And then they want to ask for my
$1
change at the grocery store.
I hate to throw it out there. Associated Black Charities, Catholic Charities, LifeBridge,
Now look, I gotta
Archdiocese, they
testify to
are
my
proctors
experience.
of grants out there, for many organizations out there.
I will testify to Catholic Charities. Every time I've reached out to them, they have come through.
Ask them to help you get the money.
Yeah, well, I don't ask nobody. I'm from Baltimore. I don't ask nobody for money. It's funny.
No. Ask them to help give you a grant.
To help you.
Oh,
you're
you're saying ask them to get? See, okay. Because
what we found is, unfortunately, those who know the secret sauce, or those who are part of the bigger, franchises, don't want anybody else to be a part of the franchise and play their reindeer games.
They have their gatekeepers.
Yeah, but they also see what they did was when that PP whatever that money is that came into the city. I'm going to fund this, that, and the third, and I'm going to do this, that, and the third. But what they did was, in order for the big entities to still continue to get their money, they put stipulations in where the little people had to. Why, if I'm out here feeding people every day, what makes you think I got $25,000 per $100,000 in the bank? What? That's just absurd. I don't want nobody to tell me when I can go buy somebody a pair of drawers or give them a fork and spoon. May I have permission, master? No, I'm not doing all that. So I chose.
I know for an organization like ours, if we had that type of money in the bank, we would be putting it in the streets. We would be putting it to work. So there's not really a time. We probably would always be, operating right near zero, or even maybe in some cases in the red, because we're digging in our own pockets as an organization. But that's because we really want to do the work. We're questioning in some cases, how can these organizations in some cases have that type of money on the side, and then still do the work, right? And you're helping.
Right.
It's impossible.
It is, especially if you're a nonprofit, because you're supposed to be zeroed out at the end of. But we all know that there's some loopholes, and some of them have endowments and all of this other stuff. But I wanted to get to what this Ronald Miles was saying about rehabbing in Baltimore. With Baltimore Homes, like, we would love to be able to rehab houses in Baltimore, but some of them have been sitting vacant as long as I've been on this earth, and that's 30 plus, 40 plus years, which means there's probably a tree growing through it. You're going to need a whole professional to get that tree out of that home, or to disassemble it, because I don't like the idea of demolition. We should continue to salvage and reuse, reduce, all of that good stuff, especially in the hood, because it creates more jobs. But anyway, when you think about, go ahead.
And let me comment on that. It's important to maintain a legacy of what's already there and not replace everything.
That establishes a neighborhood. A neighborhood is based on really and truly strong communities are based on its historical legacy and its historical stories. You know what I mean? Like for instance, Ellicott City is known for its main street and so many different, sites, the park. They have the state park there. There's so many things that are there that let you know, and historically they have been there, and they preserved that main street. They didn't turn it into a Saks Fifth Avenue, business district,
or
like
a big
New York.
green space. My God.
Or a green big, They kept it and
they
preserved it.
Yeah. But it takes the community to do that. And so I think that part of the issue is that our communities are struggling to survive. So no one's coming to the community meeting to talk about what we're doing at the rec center, because I got to pay my bills and I need to feed my family. So let's be real about that.
Or maybe I work at Amazon and I got to be to work in a couple of hours where I got to work all night long, and then
now. Or I got to get on the bus, because the bus, it takes me 2 hours to catch the bus to get to work, and I need to cook dinner before I leave to feed my family. Any of these things can be possible. But in Baltimore, what I think is interesting, specific, I'm gonna let you talk, Jason, but specific to the housing, we have about 3,000 to 5,000 people who are experiencing homelessness and housing insecurity every night. We have 16,000 vacant that the city claims, never mind the people that don't even live in Baltimore.
Correct.
Quite honestly, I think it's upwards of 40,000 when we're talking about vacancy, abandoned lots, misuse, underuse, all the things that Baltimore is suffering from. I mean, I would love to do that, but we need funds. The issue is if Baltimore's housing stock is at a $200,000 value, but it takes me $350,000 to redo that house, chances are the house won't get done and the neighborhood's going to continue to look like it's been looking for those past 30, 40, 50 years. Not to mention, lead is leaching into the dirt. There's all types of pollutants that are happening because the home is decaying. So we really have to think about it in a really like eco sustainable, Black futuristic technology. All of these things need to be addressed in however the solution is found. What do you want to say, Jason? I'm sorry.
I was going to say, no, talking about that, the reason why you see the issues that go on in our community is because we're easy to be picked off. And don't take it from me. Take it from Reverend Walron, who's associated with the National Action Network, associated with Al Sharpton and them. And he said that he was at a gathering one time, a function, and it was a bunch of big developers up in the Harlem community, up in New York. And he had his white collar on, his religious collar on, because he's a religious man. He wears the collar. And so the guy came up to him who was a developer, and he didn't know whether or not he was maybe seeking confession from Reverend Walron. But he basically told Reverend Walron, he said, you know why we picked neighborhoods like Harlem and other poor neighborhoods? He said, because poor people don't fight. Poor people don't fight. So in many cases, you see these communities the way that they are.
Poor people are tired. Like, I don't like that. They're picking on like poor people don't fight. No, poor people. But
that's the mentality. That's the mentality of these developers. These developers think that we're easy pickings, that it's easy to come in our communities and just swipe from,
they don't care
what's traditionally ours.
Yeah, they don't care why we don't fight. They just know that we don't, and that's enough for them to move in.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And another thing is you have to understand that they're not going to let me and you thrive in Baltimore City with tiny houses. You know why? Because if we don't change these seats within the next 4 to 5 years, the next election, we're going to be kicked out of Baltimore. Because they just sold over $2.something billion in property last year during the pandemic. What do you think that's going to look like in the next 2 years when they're redeveloping and when they make it $300,000 and $400,000 homes? And now we do not have affordable housing. They did it sneaky. Because like I said, I've been a tenant advocate for over 20 years. I've been fighting for tenants' rights and responsibilities, and I done seen it, a million times. Right. We cannot afford to live here. We cannot afford to live here. We don't have living wages to support the bare minimum.
And BGE just went up. BGE just went up February 1st.
February the 1st. And you're going to get another 33% increase in your water bill. And they're not telling you this because they're saying these plans were made during pre-COVID, and now they have to be implemented because the governor lifted restrictions. You have to understand.
The plan being made is that well before 2020, we'll say before the next 60 years is over, the plans are already in action. The blueprints have already been had. The relationships have been made. Baltimore is going to look like Amazon and Under Armour blue.
Yep.
That's the brand.
Yep. Because, they putting $200,000-$300,000 houses down in the back of Westport so these people can pull their yachts up and walk in.
Yeah.
And then
you ain't going to see him down. You ain't going to see him down by the library at the little Chinese spot.
Yeah, we saw some of their mentality. We saw some of their mentality and thinking with EDBI. I was fortunate to kind of be on the front lines at the time with EDBI and trying to fight for some inclusions and what was going on with the John Hopkins and that whole East Side development stuff. And I'll never forget it because I had somebody that was kind of on the inside of EDBI that was kind of talking to me on the side at City Hall, at City Council. And he was telling me that basically the theory, from John Hopkins is is that you have these professionals that come in, they live, they work, they play, everything all within that square space. You have the amenities of the harbor, you have $250,000 homes with rooftop decks, you have, access to the harbor and the boat yards, so it's live, work, the lifestyle, not necessarily of the rich and famous, but of those who are the professionals, those who are the scientists, the researchers, the doctors, those who come to Johns Hopkins to make them the fine institution that they are. They're looking at creating this metropolis around Johns Hopkins for them. That means
or close to it per se, because
correct.
You got people down in Federal Hill that lives down in no condos that pay $8,000 to $12,000 a month for a 1-bedroom. They don't want to live with us. And you think they're gonna let us put up tiny houses?
They're not going to let us do anything, but Yolanda, we're going to see our tiny house villages come to life. Let that be known, right? Like,
right,
I ain't messing with y'all.
Use whatever language you want, but they may not let us, but it'll get done. Go ahead, Ted.
Listen to you guys talk about homelessness and the schools. We have students who are homeless going to school, so I have a really cool idea, right? Maybe we could put a tiny home somewhere on or near a school where they're experiencing homelessness, or put them up near all the schools or even on the schools. Of course, the city doesn't want the liability, so that the kids that are like homeless have somewhere to sleep that's safe, man. Like,
yeah, that's actually ingenious. But
because look, I've followed when I was wherever I'm at. Like right now, I'm volunteering at a school in Cherry Hill. I volunteered and also worked at a rec at over in Greektown. And there's times and really, if you're not engaged with the kids, you just won't know, right? You'll think there's just the kid's just being a kid, not brushing his teeth, not doing this or that, whatever. So many times I've walked with my students home to make sure they're safe, to see what's going on, see how I can engage as a volunteer, as a chaplain, whatever hat I need to wear, right? And I get it when the kids they'll ask me, they'll be embarrassed and they'll say, "Oh, it's right around the corner. I got it, chap." And they'll cut down the alley and I'll just watch down the alley and they just hop in the yard and it's like, oh man, okay. And it's more often than you think. I think more of the population than you would think, right, is experiencing homelessness. These kids are out here on the street. I can't remember the census because I had read some information about it, but what a good solution, because kids are small anyway, right? They don't, and how cool would that be if you had, a pocket of or a property or a vacant with a couple tiny homes, and you have responsible organization and adults managing those homes safely for the children, right? That could be a thing.
Yeah,
but this is out of the box thinking,
Yeah, but the only problem is that they're gonna give us a whole bunch of grief because tiny houses is not zoned for Baltimore City.
Not yet.
They're not only zoned. They don't want to give us access to water and BG&E and all that kind of stuff at a discounted price for a tiny house. Even though it would cost you less money to do a 8 by 12 than do a 25-foot home. They like BG&E gonna ask you, because for some reason we're not allowed to bring in another gas electric supplier because they help fund City Hall. So you got to understand, you got to follow the money. You have to follow the money. BG&E at the end of the day, they want their money. The smaller the house, the less payment they'll get. So they're not going to agree with it. Just like people don't understand, they can turn your lights off in the wintertime because they go to the public service commissioners and they write out an affidavit and ask for permission to turn your lights off. So when people
in the dead of winter,
right? They can't turn my lights off. Yes, they can. These people are not there to fight. It's no one to fight for us.
I can run my extension cord over to the neighbor's house real quick.
Then they're gonna hit you with all kinds of mess. And then the person that's living next door is gonna actually get fined for using BG&E. They're gonna actually be charged. I'm sorry, to be charged with using somebody else's gas electric. They set everything in place to not help each other.
Yeah. Yep. Each and every time. And I think part of it is, like we've said, if you can control a population and, make the decisions for them, you're going to continue to keep that purse, and that's going to be your power. And that's the unfortunate part. Like, the fact that the school to prison pipeline is a business, the fact that healthcare is a business, the fact that education is a business, it's like all these people, us, are suffering because of the lack of, resources. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and there's no doesn't seem to be any real human compassion or human empathy when it comes to the conditions in this city. Because if you
Right.
really had any empathy, you wouldn't allow what you see down near City Hall in reference to homeless people. If you
Yeah.
know, if you really cared and had some empathy, you would have some sort of affordable housing program that makes sense to the community. Because right now, what's going on in HABC is all over the place. And if you
Mhm.
try to go out there, and I say this all the time, there's no such thing as affordable housing. It's what you are willing to accept and are willing to deal with. Because I know people that pay $700, $800 a month rent, but guess what? They have a slumlord. Their
Yeah.
house is definitely not something you want to go visit and live in, but they
Right.
they accept it because that's the only thing that they can afford,
Right.
unfortunately. And I've seen people that are living in chat, being out there, and walking some of these young folks home. Those that do have homes, they're in no better condition than that young man that jumped that fence that went into that abandoned minion. In many cases, you go into these homes and they're dealing with rats, roaches. They're
Yep.
dealing with dilapidated properties or falling apart properties, and that was the main reason why the city had did that enforcement a year or two ago. Having the annual inspections. In order to
Right.
have
For the
occupancy
rental.
use. Right. But how they get around that? Well, there's a lot of rogue landlords out there that are not following occupancy use. They're not telling the
Right.
city that they have occupants in there, and
Yeah.
that's how you get around it. But then it also means that you have to accept whatever the conditions is, and you don't want to buck back at your landlord because you don't want to end up out in the streets because it's the only thing that you can afford. When the average rent in
Right.
Baltimore City is $1,200 a month, you can't live in this city. Not the average person, especially when, according to the last census said that $29,000, somewhere roughly around $29,000 a year, is the annual income, the median income for Baltimore City. Well, if you take out rent at $1,200 a month, that's $14,400 in a year. That's
Wow.
more than half of your salary being taken away right there. You haven't even paid the high BG&E, the high water bill, the high groceries, the high transportation costs, the
And
high
wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a
health
minute.
expenses,
Let's not forget
and
your
you're making
food
shot
stamp,
on the way to work.
because you went and got this little job. Your food stamps been cut off, and now you don't get medical assistance. So all these things, now you got to pay for food and daycare and all this
Yep.
stuff because you make the bare minimum of
Right.
25 cents over what they consider minimum wage. Now all your benefits been cut off. Now if you live in
Right.
Section 8 housing, your rent just been raised.
Right.
Your daycare been taken, so you got to figure that out. You got to figure out how they're gonna how you
When
gonna
you
get
talk
back
about
and forth
that
to
black
work.
butterfly, majority of the people that live in the black butterfly are below 29,000. They're at
Right.
17,000,
below.
15,000, $12,000 a
Yeah, my
year.
sister do taxes, and she'll tell you she do a lot of people taxes in the city that didn't even clear $18,000 a year.
Wow.
So if you take that and you paying $1,200 a month, $1,400, what does that leave for your BG&E bill?
Nothing.
Right.
I'm probably getting ready to
Nothing.
get turned off again right now.
Right. Hello. Like that's what it's really setting us up
I want to
for.
move in that house behind you, whatever that house is behind you.
Right. This is one of
I'm
the
ready
Does
to
it
tiny
have
move in.
homes.
solar? Is it
Get
off the
this.
grid? Is it solar off the grid?
It needs to be. It needs to be. But don't tell Baltimore City because they're not going to accept it if it's solar and off the grid. Okay. Like what
Well,
sense
see, that's
does
the
that
thing.
Well,
They
make?
that's what
won't
we need
even
to
let
fight for.
solar
That
come in
we
the
need to
city.
fight for that.
Well,
We
let
need to
me
fight for that
comment real
change.
quick because you're talking about salaries. So the minimum wage in Baltimore City is like 12 something, 12.20 or something an hour.
It just went
So
up. It just went up the first
right,
of the year.
so that's $24,000 a year. But if you look at how they manipulate the data, because I don't know anybody, I know a couple people making this salary in Baltimore City, but the average mean salary for Baltimore City residents online, or the information you look at, says $50,000 a year. I'm not even close to that. You know.
Well, see, the thing is,
I'm definitely
what
not
about
close
these
to that.
children? Yeah, but what about these children that go to work to try to help their families? My son, he went and got a job at Burger King, and even though he was supposed to get $12 an hour, they have these new rules that say no, he gets paid $10 an hour. So $13 an hour. So he got paid $10 an hour to work at Burger King, working slave wages for $10 an hour. This is what they're doing to our children, and then you wonder why they're standing outside on corner.
But that's what they do, right? Like my man Nathan, he'll work at Burger King, work his minimum wage because he's trying to do it right. He's got a kid on the way, or his kid was born by now, and then on his lunch break, he'll go make more on the corner, squeegeeing cars real quick for half an hour than he made all day grinding away at the fast food joint. So he does both, and then who knows? I don't ask what he does later because I ain't gonna lie for nobody, so don't tell me nothing.
Right, and see, the thing is that my son was only bringing home 32, and then they had him working like 2 to 3 hours a day. So he was only he wasn't even at the taxes. He wasn't even bringing home $60. So he was like, "Man, I'm not doing this no more." But you got him working hard, doing dishes and prepping and all kinds of stuff, and he just made less than $60 for 2 weeks. What does that look like?
The worst part about it is that's your son. Like, there are people who have whole families that are in that same situation. And so what do we expect? Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like there's so many levels to this, and it starts at the age of coming out of the womb. Like, off the break, we're already doing things. And when I say we, I mean the system. The system is already doing things to, put a little mark or a target on these kids' backs. And it's like, what can we do so that families aren't struggling like they've been struggling for all of these years? Like, something has got to change.
Elect new leadership. Elect new leadership.
Have to go. Yeah, but
elect new leadership.
Right, they have to go. I'm sorry, that might be a homeboy, and you play basketball and football, but if you see that they're not doing these people correctly, that's just like, I can't condone piss poor behavior, and I will not. I don't care how long I've known you. If I know you're a cruddy person, I'm not voting for you. I'm not going to do that. That doesn't even make sense to me. Oh, I know him, that's why I'm voting. Well, what has he done? Give me something that somebody has done. Don't
and if you know him, you should know what he's done.
Right, outside of their neighborhood. Because we do have politicians that if you go into Ashburton, they'll say, "Oh yeah, my politician, I see him all the time. He's jogging with his labradoodle, and he's a great guy. He comes over for dinner and we drink Chardonnay together. But you ask outside the neighborhood where your politician has been at, they'd be like, I don't know who he is. And if you show them a picture of it, they'd be like, I don't know who that joker is."
That's what I was saying in one of these community talks. I was on another podcast this weekend, and they're like, well, how do we build community? How does the church and the politicians get together? I'm like, well, politicians need to be fixing more than just their district, and the churches need to engage more than just their congregation. It's really not that complicated. Like, treat people like people and treat your community like it's your village, and people will start to prosper. We'll see folks grow. More than that needs to be done, but start with treating people like people. I think that's one of the best things we can do.
Well, I'm gonna tell you something. When I just said it on our show when we got off, you have to understand what a politician is. So when you vote in somebody that got politician under their name, you get exactly what you asked for. A politician job is to protect businesses. I don't know if you're special interest groups, the money, and big profit companies, because it's a business. My job as a peoplestician is to protect the people. I'm a peoplestician. Here comes the peoplestician. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I am a peoplestician. My job is to protect the people, not the money. And you know what makes sense to them, which is CENTS, doesn't make common sense SENSE to us. So it all comes back down to the money.
And let's be clear that when politicians do take care of their people, we're not their people.
Correct.
Exactly.
Right. We're definitely not their people, and we never will be, and that's fine. But we are here every Monday at 7. I know Robert's show is going to come on at 8 o'clock, so we need to wrap up and get up out of here. I am so glad to have met with y'all today, family. Go ahead, Chad.
That's it. To be continued. Let's
continued, always. I appreciate this. This was a great conversation, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
You.
Have a good one. We'll be back next Monday.